Let's watch Kamala Harris do a couple sit-downs with Liz Cheney, who I know, puke in my mouth, but Kamala continues to show that she's really good at this, proving MAGA wrong in her ability to talk off script, to be hard-hitting, factual, relate with historical precedents in a way that Trump just can't do, as he'd rather talk about the genitals of his golfing buddies. And I think starting with this clip will help show that.
This concept of isolation, we were once there as a nation, and then Pearl Harbor happened. Let's remember recent history. Europe remembers it well. When we got attacked, Pearl Harbor, we jumped in. And it is because America jumped in that we were ultimately able to win that war. And it should be a constant reminder to us, we have to remember history, that isolationism, which is exactly what Donald Trump is pushing, pull out of NATO, abandon our friends. Isolationism is not insulation. It is not insulation. It will not insulate us from harm in terms of our national security.
This is a really, really brilliant point. Like, it's one of the most insightful things that's been raised the entire campaign. And it speaks volumes in the face of Trump and MAGA, whose movement thinks that we don't have to put any focus abroad. There's something to be said about military intervention, but aid to foreign countries is very important. It's a different conversation. When we did what MAGA and Trump is pushing for in World War II, it signaled to an authoritarian leader in Adolf Hitler that he could get away with what he was doing to the Jews. And it allowed him to escalate his aggressions on that side of the globe until it eventually spilled over to us anyway. We were attacked, and then at that point, we had to jump into a full-on war where so much money was lost and Americans died, more importantly. Fast forward to today, where Trump wants to repeat this action rather than learn from our mistakes, which would signal to an authoritarian leader in Putin that he can get away with what he's doing in Ukraine, doing to Europe, and would allow him to escalate his aggressions on that side of the globe until it spills over to our NATO allies, or worse, to us directly, and we then have to jump into a full-on war where so much money is lost and Americans will die. Harris Waltz understand this history and do not want to repeat America's mistakes. Isolationism isn't insulation. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. And a vote for Trump just leads to more destruction happening abroad. This quote unquote peace in the world definitely wasn't true in his first term. And it absolutely will be the furthest thing from the truth in his next.
We cannot despair. You know, the nature of a democracy is such that I think there's a duality. On the one hand, there's an incredible strength when our democracy is intact. An incredible strength in what it does to protect the freedoms and rights of its people. Oh, there's great strength in that. And it is very fragile. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. And so that's the moment we're in. And I say do not despair, because in a democracy, as long as we can keep it in our democracy, the people, every individual has the power to make a decision about what this will be. And so let's not feel powerless. Let's not let and I get it, overwhelming nature of this all make us feel powerless, because then we have been defeated.
And this is exactly what Trump wants, is for voters to feel powerless and as if our democracy has been defeated, because that's the only way Republicans can win. And this is why he tried to use fake electors in 7 states to subvert the votes of the people, because he doesn't care about democracy or your power in our elections, right? When we have democracy, it's one of the most powerful things in the world. One of the most frustrating things that I hear from MAGA is how they are already capitulating to this idea of us not having democracy. And I, honest to God, think this is the reason why. I think in a lot of cases, they just want to say that we're a republic because, Republican, and we're not a democracy because, democracy, Democrat. Like, that's literally it. They just think it's bad because Democrat democracy and Republic is good because Republican. But it's also just a fundamental misunderstanding of how these systems of government actually work. They're not antithetical to each other, right? If we're a republic, it doesn't mean we can't be a democracy. If we're a democracy, it doesn't mean we can't be a republic. We're a constitutional republic, which is inherently a representative democracy. A republic literally just means that you elect people to represent you. That is it. If you elect people to represent you, you are a republic. And in our country, how do we elect people to represent us? We do this democratically, of course. We do this through democracy and a democratic process. On state and local levels, it's through direct democracy. You vote and they get elected, right? On the federal level, it's through representative democracy, where our votes go towards electors who then pick the candidate of which received the most votes, and whoever gets the most electoral votes then becomes the nominee or the president-elect, I should say. And this is the idea that this isn't a democracy. It's just MAGA's way to introduce soft fascism, where they can continuously erode away from our democratic nature as a country, as they do with, things like the Supreme Court, with tons of ways, right? That things are inherently undemocratic. But then they can say, as they keep going further, we were never a democracy, right? This is why we're doing this. This is why we're a dictatorship. This is why we're censoring media, right? This is why you can't vote in this election, and we're going to install Trump Jr. in 2028, right? It's eroding at the foundation we were built on, and it goes against everything the founding fathers wanted for our country.
An independent review of Donald Trump's policy on Social Security has indicated that under his policy, Social Security would become insolvent in 6 years. And what I and you and I think most of us know is that we have many, many seniors in our country where their Social Security check is their only form of income. It's everything and the only thing they have to live on, to pay rent, groceries, all of that. And so we must protect Social Security. If you look at Donald Trump's Project 2025, the plan that they have if he is elected or re-elected president, it would attack Social Security, it would attack Medicare.
This is exactly correct also, and it is something that sends me because it shows how MAGA is so superficial in their political and economic knowledge. I really wish that voters would have to be more informed before they vote, which is again, anti-democratic, so I don't support that actually happening. But goddamn, is it annoying when it's a bunch of uninformed voters keeping Republicans any bit relevant when they shouldn't have been long ago, because they literally think because Trump doesn't have a plan in his agenda called literally defund Social Security, they think, oh, well, he's not going to do it. He doesn't say he's going to do it. Look, show me the plan that says defund Social Security. It's literally the meme of a guy in a white robe at a KKK meeting, and his friend is his black friend is there, and he's like, he's not racist. He doesn't even have a white hood on. You just have to know how Social Security and Medicare is funded, which is primarily through the payroll tax, right? This is something Trump attempted to cut in his 2018 tax cuts, couldn't get the votes to have it on there. Temporarily, he cut it during the 2020 pandemic, then ran on in 2020, making that permanent, and it's now included in the rendition of his tax cuts that he wants to pass if elected. This is what without any replacement of that funding being proposed from him. So yes, he does want to defund Social Security. This would lead to it being defunded. Social Security is something that keeps 2/3, yes, over 60% of our seniors out of poverty, by the way, for those who might not know. It's something that's not at all in danger of running out, right? This is kind of fan fiction or from people who just don't really understand how to calculate things. People who think that it's going to run out or calculating the liabilities without calculating the assets. This is why economic understandings are important, right? That being what they're doing, they're taking the funding that they see for it now, X amount of dollars, and then they're subtracting how much is taken out yearly, X amount of dollars. And they're saying, oh, look, if we keep taking out this much yearly, by this time, it's going to be ran out. But what they're forgetting to put in is the assets. The assets are me, are you, are the working class who's going to spend the next 50 years replacing that money and paying into it, right? The funding is not only there for now, but it will continuously be there. So save from the workplace drastically dropping off 50 to 60%. And even then conversations could be had, right? It will be well funded and it will continue to keep our seniors out of poverty. And it's one of the most effective and best programs that our government has came up with.